Welcome to another weekender. One of the week passes by, and let's see what has gone on across the world while we were busy in our day-to-day lives. A word of caution, a disclaimer, if you will. This all this information is already out there in the public domain on various social media platforms. I'm just here to talk about them with you guys, and let's see what sense does it make to us. Because usually what happens is all the legacy media houses, they have some or the other vested interest to portray or present a piece of information in a certain way that would benefit them. All right. Now here's the problem. Okay. All these legacy media houses, they belong to the western part of the world. So their interest lies in somehow portraying the eastern part of the world as somewhat inferior to them. So whatever information that they spread out across the world has a subliminal messaging that, oh, we are the West, we are somehow better. You belong to the eastern part of the world, you belong to the so-called second world or third world countries. So let's see, to start off, the Doordarshan network of ours, they have made two AI bots, Krish and Bhumi. Okay. Now this is really a giant leap forward for Doordarshan, that is usually perceived, or the government that is usually perceived as somebody who is not keeping pace with technology. So these two AI robots, namely Krish and Bhumi, they are going to be newsreaders on the channel of DD Kisan. So they're going to read news in 15 different languages, and guess what? They'll never get tired. They are going to keep reading news for 24 hours, 365 days without getting tired. Yes. Okay. Another thing that was curious enough to catch my attention was now we also have an answer to ChatGPT. Okay, and curiously enough, the name of that platform has been given as Hanuman AI. Interesting. It is just still in the initial stage, but let's see how useful it is. Now, very recently, in the country of Italy, there was this meeting for G7 countries. So all the finance ministers from the G7 countries, they met at a town in Italy. And G7 is a group of all the developed economies that have a democratic model of government. So all these countries are naturally they have affinity towards the American way of taking decisions. So whatever it's whatever it is that US does, these G7 countries, they follow, or you can say that they have some sort of a camaraderie with USA. And so the finance ministers of all the G7 members, they met in Italy, and they came out with some interesting statements. Let's see what sense can we make out of those statements. First thing that they focused on was China. Okay. Now, to give you some insight into what exactly do they mean about China's criticism is, China follows a socialist, or rather a communistic socialist model of government. So they have this industrial capacity that is more than a conventional democracy has. And this is something that is not going down well with the other democracies. And let me tell you, Japan is the only country in G7 that is from Asia, and it is part of G7. G7 stands for group of 7 countries. These 7 countries are democratic countries, and they are highly developed. So they met together, and since China is somewhat on the communist side of the spectrum, they are criticizing an industrial overcapacity, meaning China is using all its resources Okay, in a democratic country, all the citizens have this right of owning and using those resources privately. Okay, for example, if somebody who is living in a democratic country, he or she has a right to private ownership of a property. Whereas if you live in a communistic state, it is the first and the foremost right over a property is of the government, and they can use this property in a way that they see fit for the benefit of the country. Now this has led to an industrial overcapacity. All right, and all the western nations, all the western democracies, they are not able to compete with the overcapacity or the industrial overcapacity that China has. So they have been finding different ways to counter the Chinese influence. One of the very common methods that United States uses is it increases tariffs on Chinese goods that are imported. Some of those goods are electric vehicle batteries, and among other goods. So that was one of the main agenda for the G7 meeting. Another main agenda for G7 meeting is now all the Western countries that are in support of Ukraine in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, now they have decided to embark on an adventurous journey, I would say. And we don't know how useful this journey is going to be in the upcoming times. But what they're planning to do is in the year of 2022, when Russia allegedly began this conflict by taking over some of the border areas of Ukraine, the Western countries, they sealed some of its assets. Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know, in layman's terms, every country, when they trade on an international level, okay, they trade in some of the currencies, and some of the mostly used currencies in world trade is dollars, euro, pound, for that matter. All right, so the Russian foreign reserves, they were largely deposited in European financial institutions. So in the year of 2022, when Russia took the bold step of taking over some of the conflict areas on the Russia-Ukraine border, those assets were sealed by these Western countries. Now, what they have decided is they can use these resources to help Ukraine that is in a very desperate situation. So what they're planning to do is they will use this frozen assets of Russia that are somewhere close to $300 billion, and they will use it as a capital, invest it somewhere, and all the earnings from that capital will go to Ukraine. But yeah, there are definitely some of the rules and regulations that have been put down that they will not use this money to fund weapons for Ukraine. So this was one of the major these were the major outcomes from the G7 conference that was held in Italy. All right. Another thing that was very interesting, in the state of Louisiana in the United States of America. Now, abortion is a very sensitive and a political issue in the entire United States of America, but more particularly in Louisiana, because Louisiana has a Republican governor, and Republicans are usually perceived to be hardliners on the abortion policy. That means they are against the abortion policy. So the state of Louisiana has classified 2 drugs. The name of those drugs are mifepristone and misoprostol. These 2 drugs, basically, they are oral drugs. They are used for the purpose of abortion. So you take these medicines and they'll help you with the abortion. Now, that is not the only use that these 2 medicines have. These 2 medicines are also used for treating miscarriages, also treating the bleeding of ulcers in some of the cases. Now, what the state of Louisiana has done through its governor is they have classified these 2 drugs as Uh, they have classified these two drugs as controlled substances. That means that whenever there is a doctor who prescribes these two drugs, it will be put on record, it will be stored in some of their databases that they have, and the state or the legal authorities can access those records without seeking a legal warrant or without seeking permission from any judicial or legal body. So, in a way, yes, it infringes upon some of the private rights that an American citizen has, but this is the decision that they've taken. And they've also added some of the punishments for somebody who has possession of these drugs without a prescription. So the punishment usually is 1 to 5 years and some monetary penalty that they have. Now, interestingly, pregnant women who will be caught with the possession of these drugs, they will not be persecuted, but the people who aid and abet them, they are within the radar of the legal authorities, and they are more likely to get persecuted. All right. Now, so just to give you a brief oversight into what exactly this issue is, like every other issue, the society of the United States is highly divided on the issue of abortion. There is one section of the society that thinks that women should have total and complete freedom over the choice of whether they should be allowed to keep the child or whether they should be allowed to terminate the pregnancy whenever they want. And there is one side of the one section of the society that says that no, it's you cannot take that decision on your own. There are far other matters involved. You cannot take that life and whatnot. So yeah, this is a very big political issue in the states, and there are other states as well. Louisiana is just one of the examples. There are other Republican states where they are pushing this agenda of taking this hardline stance on not allowing unilateral decisions by females to abort the child. All right. Now, there has been a lot of debate about whether the society that we live in is it really based on merit, or is it really based on some of the benefits that you get by the virtue of being born in a specific society and a specific family with a specific surname. Now, for those of you who misinterpret and misunderstand all the theories, one of the theories is the Varna system. There is one very interesting anecdote from one of the stories that I very recently came across and made sense out of it, obviously. Now, this is just to bring out a better understanding. There's not much into it that I am advocating. So here's the story, and with a very subliminal messaging at the end. So you really need to be very perceptive when you read such Vedic stories and Vedic literature. So one of the stories is about the incarnations of Vishnu. Now, Vishnu is the supreme deity in our faith, and so the third incarnation of Vishnu was called Varaha. Okay. Now, the third incarnation of Vishnu killed a demon that was Hiranyaksh. Okay. Now, Hiranyaksh had an elder brother that was Hiranyakashyap. Okay. So when Hiranyakashyap came to know about this, that the Supreme Lord Vishnu had killed his younger brother, that was Hiranyaksh, he went into a fit of rage, and he wanted to seek revenge on the supreme deity. So what he did was he did a very difficult penance, and he went through this very high painstaking procedure that we like to call as tapasya in Hindi. and he pleased the deity of Brahma, one of the three supreme deities that we have in our faith. So, yes, so Brahma was very pleased by the devotion and the penance of Hiranyakashyap. And Hiranyakashyap, he sought a boon of immortality from the one third of the supreme trinity that we have, that is Brahma, to which Brahma refused that nobody is immortal, so you cannot have that. Now, Hiranyakashyap, being a smart demon that he is, he came up with a very ingenious idea of, okay, if I can't be immortal, all right. So he put forth some of the conditions that I cannot be killed during the day, I cannot be killed during the night, I cannot be killed by a male, I cannot be killed by a female. So he came up with this long list of terms and conditions that I cannot be killed during this, during that, with this, with that. I cannot be killed with a weapon. So he tried to cover all the bases, and he was very much happy that, okay, now I have covered all the bases, and Brahma happily granted all the wishes. Now, I want you guys to hold on to this thought, because this has a very significant subliminal message towards the end. Okay. Now, obviously, Vishnu, being the supreme deity, he knew all about this, and so what happens is, after this, having gained this confidence after gaining this boon from Brahma, what he did was he started challenging all the gods. He was like, now that I have this boon from, Brahma himself, I can compete with, any of the gods and goddesses. So he started terrifying, and he started waging wars with all the gods and goddesses that he could see. And yes, slowly and steadily he started driving out all the, gods from their homes, eventually drove them out of the three worlds to heavens. So he started driving all these gods out of heavens, and so in desperation, all these gods and goddesses, they went obviously to Vishnu, and Vishnu with his, as usual charm, and with his stillness of mind, he was like, okay, I will definitely figure out a way. Now, what happened was, Hiranyakashyap had a son called Prahlad. He strangely became a devotee of Vishnu. So this definitely and very obviously angered his father, that how could you be a devotee of Vishnu when he is the prime adversary that I have. He is the number one enemy that I have. And Prahlad was very much adamant in his devotion towards the supreme deity, and so Hiranyakashyap tried to murder his own son. He tried to kill them, but every time, Hiranyakashyap tried to kill Prahlad, he was not able to. And so one fine day, Hiranyakashyap asks Prahlad, how are you so confident? Aren't you scared of me, the demon king? And Prahlad was like, no, not really. My strength comes from my belief in the supreme deity, that is Vishnu, and I am sure he is everywhere. I have this very strong conviction inside me that the supreme deity Vishnu is present everywhere. And after hearing this, Hiranyakashyap loses it, and he, goes into a fit of rage, and he, kicks one of the pillars of his palace that he has. And after kicking that pillars of one of his palaces, comes out the Narasimha avatar of Vishnu, that is the fourth incarnation of the supreme deity. And after coming out, the Narasimha kills Hiranyakashyap. This is a very popular folk tale in our faith. And so now, just to conclude, Narasimha was not a human. He had a body of a human, but head of a lion. So all the bases that Hiranyakashyap thought that he had covered by asking a boon from Brahma, so now Vishnu was able to circumvent all those conditions by, so Hiranyakashyap was killed during the twilight period. That is that meaning that that period was not exactly a day, not exactly a night, but the twilight period that is in between. He was not killed by a human, so there were other things that also Vishnu managed to circumvent, because obviously he is the supreme god. But the point that I'm trying to make here is Hiranyakashyap being a demon king, okay, he was the king of the demons. All right. So are you telling me that Brahma, who is supposed to be the 1/3 of the Holy Trinity in our faith, did he not know? Did he not anticipate? Did he not have the foresight that the boon that I'm giving this boon to a demon king? Wouldn't he misuse it? Obviously, he knew he would misuse it. Okay? Now, I want you to pay very close attention to what this means. It does not matter from where do you come. Okay, it does not matter whether you are a demon or whether you are a god. Okay, if you do the penance, if you do the hard work, you will get the boons. There is a parallel story of Ram and Ravan. Ravan too had a boon from Lord Shiva. So it does not matter. If you put in the hard work, if you have the merit, you will get the result. So this was the underlying subliminal meaning behind this story, that our society was always based on merit. It wasn't based on genealogy, it wasn't based on hereditary. You do not gain anything by the virtue of being born in a specific family. Okay? Whoever you are, whatever you do, it is accumulated by the virtue of you doing it. Alright, so this was the subliminal message behind this story. I hope you enjoyed it. For more such content, subscribe to our channel.